Hey internet friends, yesterday on the 100th anniversary of the US entering World War I, the US launched missiles at a Syrian airbase in response to a chemical weapons attack that reportedly killed more than 100 people. But the question buzzing across the internet is, what did Assad have to gain from gassing his own people? Thus, we have whispers of a false flag, orchestrated by the very groups, nations, and individuals who would benefit from the fall of Assad. Maybe over the last couple of days, the idea of a false flag has crossed your mind too. Maybe that's why you're watching now. And I would propose that it should give you pause that even for a moment, you consider that these attacks were manufactured. But you're not alone. A lot of us sense something isn't right. The last few days have been marked by rushed judgments, the mainstream media funneling their selective outrage, putting up graphic images of dead children and adults in Syria. Mix that together with tensions with Russia building along with the hostility between Israel and Assad, giving us many factors that might point to a planned invasion. But the mainstream media will never tell us that. They'll never tell us the truth, and we should stop waiting for them to. In the town of Newark, New Jersey lies a company called Genie Energy. The board of directors at this company include big names like former Vice President Dick Cheney, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, member of the Rothschild banking family and investment banker Jacob Rothschild, and ex-CIA director James Woolsey, among others. On the other side of the world, there's a coveted plateau in western Syria, rich in natural resources and history. At the tail end of the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel seized the Golan Heights from Syria, leaving Syrians to flee while almost immediately Israel began to settle there. In violation of the UN Charter, Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights is seen as unlawful. Before his death, Israeli General Moshe Dayan admitted that it was deliberate Israeli provocations into Syrian Golan Heights that gave Israel the manufactured pretext to invade and occupy. Thus, it's been nothing but a dumpster fire since, with Syria trying to retake Golan in 1973, and with both Syria and Israel signing an armistice in 1974. But Israel unilaterally annexed the Golan Heights in 1981, but this move was not recognized internationally. And for Israel to seek to exploit mineral reserves in the occupied Golan Heights was plainly illegal in international law. You know what else is in Golan Heights besides Syrian and Israeli settlements and a whole lot of contempt for each other? Oil. Lots of oil. And natural gas. That's why Genie Energy is there anyway. Does this bother you? Maybe it should. While Murdoch, Rothschild, and Cheney are pumping black gold out of the ground, Turkey, the US, Russia, and a bunch of others have been fighting over Syria's geostrategic location. So who benefits from Syria in disarray? War in Syria means Israel can expand its occupation and settlements, and it also means that a European pipeline can be built. While the media claims to be fair and balanced, how can you stay fair and balanced when you have Dick Cheney, our oil guy, Rupert Murdoch, our propagandist, and Jacob Rothschild, the banker, controlling the media, politics, and the economy? How can you expect the media to deliver the truth of what's going down in Syria, or in the Middle East in general, when they're too busy brainwashing your children to go to war and igniting fear in the hearts of citizens with what is, in my opinion, manufactured terrorism? Do you think U.S. intervention in the Middle East, particularly with Syria, has very little to do with fighting terrorism, and maybe far more to do with the region's rich petroleum reserves? I think the board of directors at Genie Energy could answer that question for us. And of course, the media won't tell you that the consequence of imperialism and insistent international meddling for corporate oil interests destabilizes the entire Middle East, and it led to the formation of radical groups, which are then funded by those who want Syrians, in particular, to either die or seek refuge in another country. Get out so we can have your oil. And we all know Iran is next, especially since British Petroleum, formerly known as the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, will never forget the wealth they sucked from the oil fields of Iran, as they were, in fact, the first company to extract petroleum from Iran. Iran's oil was a global prize and one that BP had no plans to let go. When Winston Churchill helped seize it in the 1920s, he called it a prize from fairyland beyond our wildest dreams. So the rival narrative to, oh my gosh, these pictures of dead children from this chemical attack are horrible, we have to act. The rival narrative is that this is all to overthrow the Syrian government. So the powers that be can install their own government. Then they can install their own central bank. And of course, the reconstruction process from war is really profitable. And you could equip a Syrian army, which is a big market for the arms manufacturers. And then they could also get that coveted pipeline from Qatar to Turkey and all the oil they want in Syria. And of course, all of this also benefits Israel. Taking over Syria gives them more of a safe zone around Israel. But there's one problem. There's one thing standing in the way, and that's Russia. On March 22nd, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson convened a U.S. ministerial conference of something the Trump administration calls the Global Coalition Working to Defeat ISIS. The State Department said that a combined 68 nations and organizations were present. Washington explicitly stated that the three most important states with deep interests in defeating ISIS in Syria and three parties essential to any serious move to dislodge ISIS in Syria, Russia, Iran, and Syria, were not welcome. When asked, Secretary of State Tillerson quipped, "They are not part of the global coalition." And if you remember correctly, Tillerson joined ExxonMobil in 1975 and rose to serve as the chairman and chief executive officer of the company from 2006 to 2016. ExxonMobil is the world's largest publicly traded international oil and gas company. Noodle on that for a minute while I say this. The culture of endless war, the establishment of the terrorist state, the never-ending fear that motivates people to emotionally and financially back the war machine. This is what they want. This is their plan, and they want us to die for it. Don't you think that those who desire war should be the ones fighting on the front lines?